featuring the Around the World Report, Ask the Elder, bi-monthly commentary, and a host of panelists concerned for humanity. So don't touch that dial. Stay tuned for your host, Daniel Israel, and Signs of the Times.
Israel is on the way. Well, you got to be blind not to read the sign. We're living in the last days and time. We're living in the last days and time. The words are warning, warning, warning. We're living in the last days and time. The words are warning, warning, warning. These are the last days and time. The words are warning, warning, warning. Be warned. We're living in the last days and time. The words are warning, warning, warning.
Hi, welcome to Sounds of the Times. I'm your host, Daniel Israel. This program is designed to serve as a forum for discussion of the social, economic, and political conditions of the world and local community. Panelists that appear on Sounds of the Times are individuals who, despite their diversity, have a common bond which links them. That is their study of history and their concern for humanity. This is a live program. You can give us a call at 770-559-2999. That's 770-559-2999. Tonight is our Ask the Elder segment. This is the segment where we bring the resident elder of the program onto the program to take your questions and your comments regarding different issues that we're discussing on the program tonight. Interestingly enough, we're talking about the salvation being of the Jews. The elder generally comes on and give us a recap of the programs that we've discussed previously, as well as give us some insight on things that are happening around the world. So for your questions and comments, you can give us a call at 770-559-2999. So without further ado, let me introduce the resident elder of the program and the elder priest of the New Covenant Congregation of Israel, Yachov ben Israel. Shalom, elder.
Shalom, my brother. How you doing?
Doing just fine. You know, elder, last week we talked about salvation being of the Jews, and salvation, as the dictionary described it, is salvation is deliverance from difficulties or dangers. And my question to you, just to start the program off, what difficulties or dangers are we facing as a people, as a nation of people, the Hebrew Israelites? What difficulties or dangers are we facing, or just that are just on the horizon?
Well, what we're headed for basically is the great period of time known in the scripture as the Great Tribulation period, the 3.5 years of Great Tribulation period.
Okay.
But in the process of getting up to the Great Tribulation period, then naturally we're going to have to undergo a tribulation period. And this tribulation period is the time that's really allotted for those who know the truth to seek out and find the lost sheep of the house of Israel. This is what the tribulation period is for. But that great tribulation period, God is going to have to deliver us out of that, because when you read Revelations 12, it lets us know that Satan went to make war with us. And we can very well see that, like Paul said, it's not flesh and blood that we wrestle with, but powers and principalities and spiritual wickedness in high places. So Satan's idea is to make God a lie. You see, pertaining to the things that he said that he was going to do toward the children of Israel. But a good example of how Yahweh allowed the nations to do things, we have to get back and when we read the holy story, we find out that Yahweh delivered us out of Egypt and brought 4 empires upon us, 4 worldwide empires upon us to chasten us, to try to get us to do what he said do. But our forefathers didn't want to deal with that. You know how we are. We like the ways of strangers. We please ourselves in the ways of strangers. This is why I always tell people, all of the religions that we practice today, we got it from strangers. No one come to us for anything. And it's a shame, because as quiet as it's kept, we are the ones that was given the covenants. Paul told you this in Romans 11 chapter, that Israel was given the covenants, the promise, the giving of the law, the service, all of the things that was given to mankind was given to the people that wrote the Bible to give to mankind. But like I said, we like to please ourselves and strangers, so what we've opted to do is grab onto the ways of the nation. It's just like this Christmas thing that's coming up. Now, we know what that's all about. That's tied up in a bunch of paganism, and everybody know it is. Now, when I was a kid, when the Jim Crow laws was in effect, we had a European that would come down our chimney and bring us gifts, right? Now I've already caught Mom and Daddy putting the gifts in the hen house, you understand?
Right.
But they gave that credit to a mythological God that knows when you're sleeping, knows when you're awake, knows when you're bad or good, and so forth and so on, you know. So we told our children these lies and so forth because we got these lies from Master.
Right.
And then when you go back to, I know when I was a kid, religion was a whole lot different then than it is now. Nowadays, everybody's after that dollar. Before, people was after souls. That was back during the time when the church didn't tithe. They said, well, we are not under the law, so we can't take tithes because tithes is written in the law book.
So back then it was pure religion.
Right. See, pure religion and undefiled. You know, people saying, give me that old time religion. It was good for the Hebrew children. It was good for Paul and Silas. But then we got away from, after World War II, we got away from those things, and they began to, this is when things began to, more of our people began to open churches that came from conferences that the Europeans controlled. So they gave us charters, and they trained our ministers, and they trained our ministers into the things into the doctrine of men instead of what's written down in the scripture. And by them doing that, what we did was this. It caused us to do was this, rather. It caused us to lose our heritage because, first of all, we stopped singing the folk songs that we used to sing. And then once we began to lose our heritage, then the nations had no problem in teaching us anything they wanted to teach us. Then after the civil rights movement came through and we got us a little freedom, we went hog wild on religion. We grabbed onto everybody's religion on the earth, but like I've always said, the only thing that we've added as a people to these religions is our time and our money.
Right.
Now, show you what I mean. Now, when they say, the Christians say they conquered Easter and Christmas for Jesus. Right? But they didn't get anything from us. You see, now the Christians say, well, all of these pagan holidays, New Year's and all the God, we understand that all of the planets are named after gods and the days of the weeks are named after gods. So we understand that, but we conquered this for Jesus. You see, so what they managed to do was incorporate their paganisms into the religion, the doctrine that was taught them by our forefathers. And then they took the same thing and fed it back to us. And once they fed it back to us, our people, they don't do any research or anything. The only thing they do is hear that little bit from some minister, and they go hog wild. They put the Holy Ghost falling, you know the Lord. Right, you know, shouting and carrying on, you know. And people used to do a shout when I was a kid, but they did it knowing what they was doing. On Tuesday nights, they'd have open house at the church, the doors would be open. Folks didn't go to the nightclubs, they'd go down to the church and they'd do a dance that they call the holy dance, the shout, you see. And then eventually what happened was the media picked that up and put it out into the streets.
Sensationalized.
Right, so the people stopped doing that in church, and then they started that falling all out and stuff, the thing that they got from the charismatics, and then took it a step further. But basically, the reason why we suffer so much is because we don't serve the true and living God. We serve ourselves our God. We serve the adversary, the devil. We do what every man does, just like we was reading last week in the book of Judges. Every man did according to his own mind. You see, and that's basically what we do today. Every man has his own idea of something. Then when you go into the Bible and take it and actually read word for word what the Bible has to say, then what man say, well, that's the way you interpreted it. Didn't nobody interpret anything. You read it. Right. You see, but they don't want to deal with that because the reason why they want to deal with the Old Testament is because the Old Testament busts up that phony doctrine that the church has today. And all the days that God told us to keep forever, throughout your generations, in all your dwellings. Teach it to your children. Let that generation teach another generation, and that generation teach another generation, simply because it was his ways, your wisdom, your knowledge, and your understanding among all the nations. Well, no wonder they consider us a foolish people. See, man has law, but they don't think that God has any law. You see, man will take you to court and do what he need to do with you. But see, All that is designed to keep us from receiving salvation. You see, Satan went to make war with us. He's not making war with the nations. I mean, the nations got everything.
Right.
He is making war with us. We are the only people on the earth. The American Indians know where they came from.
Right.
And they put them on reservations, right? But when you look at us, we are the only people on the earth that can't go back factually in the history books and prove that we are the Hebrew Israelites. But you can take the Bible and use it along with history and bring us from Israel through Africa right over here in America slave. And it has to be a deliverance.
You know, he was talking about the promises and the service of God and the covenants and so forth. And being that if one nation of people, if the children of Israel were given all those things from the creator of all things, salvation can't be of anybody else but the Jews.
This is why Christ was king of the Jews. See, they like to say he was a Christian, but he wasn't. Christ was king of the Jews. The same people that call us Christians at Antioch in Syria call us a whole lot of other choice names today, you know, and has done it down through the years. As a matter of fact, they were the ones that renamed us Negroes. You see, so the Europeans has always given us different names and changed things and so forth, but when you get right down to it, they took over and we go to them for doctrine. But when you read the book, the Israelites wrote the book. The people that went and taught the Europeans were Israelites. Then in 70 AD, General Titus, the Romans invaded Jerusalem and destroyed our holy city and kicked us out the land, and then they took over. And once they knew that religion would be what it would take to hold the people together. So what they did was they kicked us out of the land and they took over. But see, what they fail to understand is this: there will be a deliverance. Yahweh delivered us out of Egypt. He delivered us out of the Babylonian captivity. Each time we went into captivity, he always, and we're the only people that he's ever said, look, I'm going to deliver my people. And came and delivered us out of captivity because of his love for us and our fathers, and set us back up in the land. Because he knew that we had learned the ways of strangers, and he tried to purge that out of us, you see. But we got worse and worse and worse, and eventually Yahweh just said, look, if y'all aren't going to represent me the way that you want to, you don't need to be in my land. So after the Messiah was born, there was no more reason for us to stay in the land. So they kicked us out of the land and scattered us to the four winds, scattered the 12 tribes of Israel to the four winds of heaven.
You know, you was talking about the deliverance out of Egypt. Now, are there parallels between the deliverance that took place in Egypt? Because we know Egypt had all kind of plagues and everything that came up on it. Are there any similar parallels between the Egyptian captivity or deliverance, if you will, and that of what the deliverance rather that is imminent?
Yes, sir. The first, second, and third trumpet in Revelation, and fourth trumpet rather in Revelation's 8th chapter, and the first, second, and third, and fourth vial of wrath in Revelation 16 chapter is plagues that Yahweh is going to pour upon America and mankind. And then the fourth plagues will destroy this country. As a matter of fact, Yahweh said he was going to stir up the Russians against her. Let me read you a piece of scripture out of that. It says, and this is in Jeremiah 50, in verse 1. It said, the word that Yahweh spake against Babylon, is talking about America, and against the land of the Aryans by Jeremiah the prophet. Declare among the nations, and publish, and set up a standard. Publish and conceal not. Say, America is taken, Baal is confounded, Merodach is broken in pieces, her idols are confounded, her images are broken in pieces. For out of the north there shall come up a nation against her, who shall make her land desolate, and none shall dwell therein. They shall remove, they shall depart, both man and peace. In those days, now see, this piece of scripture here is going to show you that the Israelis are in the land illegally. See, the Israelites cannot return to the land until after America falls. Verse 4, this is Jeremiah 15, verse 4. It said, in those days and in that time, saith Yahweh, the children of Israel and shall come, they and the children of Judah together, going and weeping. They shall go and seek Yahweh their God. They shall ask the way to Zion with their faces this way, saying, come, let us join ourselves unto the Lord in a perpetual covenant that shall not be forgotten. My people have been lost sheep. Their shepherds have caused them to go astray. They have turned them away on the mountains. They have gone from mountain to hill. They have forgotten their resting place. All that found them have devoured them. I mean, we've been under all of the nation in captivity, under all the nation of the earth, and not just this last 400 years captivity. We've been in captivity since 721 BC, you know, quite a bit of our people. It says, all that found them have devoured them. And their adversaries say, we don't offend because they have sinned against Yahweh, the habitation of justice, even Yahweh, the hope of their fathers. So this is the reason why Yahweh brought us over here as slaves. This was a purging out process. This was this captivity that he told Abraham we'd be in Genesis 15:13, because we were to be in a land that was not ours, that our fathers did not know of. And in that time, America hadn't been discovered. This is why when our people came over here, they were singing those songs of redemption, going back to the land, going back to the land, see, because they knew that this was in the covenants that was made with their fathers. But then, as we began, once they got rid of the Jim Crow laws, and we began to fellowship, then what we began to do next is assimilate. And we grabbed on to anything that the Europeans gave us, brother. We didn't ask no questions about it. The preacher said it, that's all we need to know. But see, what a lot of people don't know, by staying off into that New Testament, they're missing the whole legacy, the whole history of the world. They're missing just about everything God himself had to say to who about what.
You know, it's interesting you say that, because I was talking to a guy this week, and he said he associated the term Hebrews with Old Testament. That's those people, they believe in the Old Testament. We, on the other hand, believe the New Testament.
They believe in what Satan gave them. Like Paul said, are the Hebrews? So am I. Are the Israelites? So am I. You know, so you can't change our nationality. You may be able to change our name. But see, when people tell you things like that, what you have to do is ask them this: who was the new covenant that Christ's blood seal made with? It was made with the same people that the old covenant was made with, the house of Israel and the house of Judah. It was prophesied in Jeremiah 31st chapter that Yahweh would make this covenant, and then he told all the prophets what he was going to bring about and so forth. And then in the New Testament, in Hebrews 8th chapter, it was told about the covenant that was made with the house of Israel and the house of Judah. As a matter of fact, he told the Europeans in Romans 11th chapter, say, you're a wild olive tree. You've been grafted into this tree contrary to nature, but don't you boast against the branches. So what they did was, they was grafted in, so they just took over the whole tree. And once they had us in captivity, wasn't nobody to complain, so they went into the Dark Ages after Rome fell, and when they came out of the Dark Ages, they had one religion, the Roman Catholic Church. And everything, all the religions of Christianity that we practice today was spawned by the Roman Catholic Church.
You know, you was talking about how that Israel went into captivity among the nations, and even in just reading the book of Jeremiah there, even the nations knew about our plight, and they knew about our association with the God of Israel, because even when the children of Israel were delivered out of Egypt, the nations round about them had the fear and the dread of the children of Israel was upon the nations, because they heard about the destruction that took place in Egypt. But you saying that it was all done as a form of chastisement upon our people?
Sure. See, this is what people don't understand. Before Yahweh does things, he tells his servants, the prophets. So in the Old Testament, he told us exactly everything that was going to happen to us. And when you check the history of the other seeds upon the earth, you find out that these things have happened to no one but us. It was Yahweh's way of chastening us. But see, what he's doing in these last days, he's raising up that nation of people again. As a matter of fact, when you get in the book of Revelation, it talked about in Revelation 7, just before Yahweh began to pour his wrath upon the earth, an angel stood up and said, don't hurt anything till we see a God's service in their forehead. Everybody talk about they serving God, but from what I read now, I'm not talking about from what I interpret. What I read, all of God's servants came out of the house of Israel. You see, so as a matter of fact, that great multitude that came through the Great Tribulation, the reason why they came through the Great Tribulation, because they heard the doctrine that Israel was talking about, and they grabbed onto the Jews. This is why Zechariah told you, when the Lord sets up his kingdom, all the nations are going to grab onto the Jews. Why? Because Christ is king of the Jews. You see, he's not king of the Christians. Satan is king of the Christians. This is why they messed around and they don't do anything God said do. When you get back in Leviticus 23rd chapter and read the law and get into the New Testament, and in the book of Acts, the first 30 years of the church, Paul himself, the one that they say came and taught them, right? Paul himself was always in a tizzy to get back to Jerusalem to keep those holy days. Now, why would Paul be keeping those holy days 20 to 30 years after Christ was resurrected from the dead if he didn't have to make that long journey from Asia Minor to Jerusalem? But see, it was required by God. But what the nations did was this. The nations they took one book, one part of the book, the New Testament, and said, well, look, that old stuff, you don't have to read it. Do you know that our deliverance is written in the law book? Our deliverance is written in when our people came out of Egypt into the wilderness and went into the land of Israel. Our deliverance is written all through there of how it's going to be done again. Like the Jeremiah said, at the destruction of America, the children of Israel and the children of Judah is going to come, going and reaping as they go, saying, show me the way to Zion. That's the Lord's holy city. You see, and when you read actually what's happening, this one world order that they're sitting up, it's the Christians that's sitting up this one world order. See, all of the nations that's part of that one world governmental system are Christians. And we know that all king, they plan on anointing one king, right? We know he's on the horizon. He's on the scene today. Right. You see, they plan on putting that currency on the market in 99, right? Now, once they set up that king, he's officially in office when the Pope of the Roman Catholic Church anoints him, right? He's top Christian. All of these Christians are coming together, but what does the Bible tell you that they're coming together to do? To destroy the mighty and the holy people. They're coming together to destroy us. This is why they all came up to Jerusalem at Armageddon. We talk about all the armies of the earth, right? Well, when you check the religious doctrine of 96% of the countries in America, they're Christian.
You know, Elder, in that statement, you got brothers and sisters that watch this program and say, look, I'm a Christian. You mean tell me I'm going to fight against the Lord that I say I believe in? Or the one that I say I worship, the one I say I serve? Well, I mean, what's going to happen to, are they going to relinquish that whole thing? Because I know even Jeremiah said, the nations said they've inherited lies and things wherein there's no profit.
Of course they're gonna change that thing if they want to live. Of course they're going to have to change it, because Zechariah told you that the people was going to grab onto the house of, they was going to grab onto the Jews, right? Isaiah told you that they was going to cleave to the house of Jacob. Micah told you, say, but in the last days it shall come to pass. Micah 4th chapter said, in the last days it shall come to pass that the mountain of the house of the Lord shall be established in the mountain, and all nations shall flow to it, right? But see, according to the Christians, that's the Old Testament stuff. God lied. He didn't mean none of that. See, we got sweet Jesus, and what he did was he gave us something else. So in other words, they're telling me that he made the Messiah lie, because God a lie, because see, Yahweh said he's going to bring his people back, and this kingdom is going, this governmental system is going to be set up here on this earth.
Is that literal?
Yeah, I get that quite often. It's literal. Is the Roman Empire literal?
Right.
We're living in the Roman Empire.
Right.
Well, all of the empires that were set up on the earth is literal, right? But people want to tell me, well, he didn't really mean that. That's not. That kingdom there is a figmentation of your mind, right? Well, then, if that's the case, he told David he was going to raise him up again, right? Well, then, David can forget it then, because the kingdom that's going to be set up is a divided kingdom. Christ is going to sit on whose throne? David's.
I hear the music. Let's go to the Round the Word Report. Be right back.
Hi, I'm David Geis, and this is the Signs of the Times Around the World report. Tonight's top story, bye-bye Miss American Pie. Had any suspicious transactions lately? Perhaps you sold a car or a house that a relative willed to you and deposited the money in your savings account. You have got some explaining to do. The Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, you know, the FDIC, and other government regulators collaborated with leaders in the banking industry this week to come up with new regulations called, quote, know your customer, end quote, rules. Banks will chart how much income you have and where it comes from. If any transactions are outside of your normal pattern, they alert the feds. Then, if you have not done anything wrong, you do not have anything to worry about, but you had better have your papers in order. The banks swear up and down that personal information will be kept private. The stated purpose of the new regulations is to alert authorities to money laundering from illegal drug activity. The war on drugs is accomplishing its most important task since the creation of crack. It is the bestial nature of governments to try any means possible to gain the ability to kick down the doors of the population at will, whether these be the doors of one's personal house or one's financial house. From Europe, there are just over 2 weeks left until the launch of the euro, the new European currency, and European leaders are meeting in Vienna to decide the next steps towards an even greater European unity. The issues being hammered out include the method for incorporating more of Eastern Europe into the Union and the need for a common defense. If you have got a common currency, you have to defend it. Egypt is urging other Arab nations to form a united Arab trading bloc. The Y2K computer bug continues to make headlines. The UN did not allow the press in when it discussed the possible impact of the millennium bug. The UN is addressing the problem as an international one. The UN wants the power to control, redistribute, and allocate resources for this and in many other areas. Perhaps the hysteria will allow them to accomplish that. Hysterical people willingly trade freedom for security. Most U.S. counties, cities, state governments, and federal agencies are not ready for the millennium, but there are plans for martial law, just in case. If we find ourselves living under martial law, with our every financial transaction being tracked, will this still be the same country? The times, they are a-changin'. Now, here's Ruth Israel with tonight's community update. Ruth?
Thank you, David. A look at the nation in brief. A Raleigh Superior Court judge lost a bid for a higher position because he announced that he is a homosexual. This is the first Republican to openly admit his sexuality and continue to hold a state office. Look for more to come as the American culture moves ever closer to that of Sodom and Gomorrah. A study by government scientists shows summers and winters have gotten hotter and stickier in the United States in the past few decades. The study also noted the humidity has been rising several degrees since the last decade. The end is surely near. We can hardly recognize the seasons at all anymore. A jury in Fort Worth, Texas deliberated 4 hours before announcing they would execute a man for confessing to using a 19-year-old retarded woman for target practice before finally killing her. Texas is known to be more expedient when making decisions concerning executions. And finally, a Georgia lawmaker denies being a racist. Bob Barr, a Georgia Republican, was keynote speaker earlier this year at a meeting of the Council of Conservative Citizens, a group that says interracial marriage will result in a white genocide and that Abraham Lincoln was elected by socialists and communists. Lawmakers said Barr was fully aware of this organization's racist and anti-Semitic views. Barr has denied the allegation and responded that, quote, he had no idea, end quote, that the group held such, quote, outrageous views, unquote. The Council of Conservative Citizens could not be reached for comment, but its website includes comments like this: take 10 bottles of milk, to represent all humans on earth. 9 of them would be chocolate and only 1 white. Now mix all of those bottles together and you have gotten rid of that troublesome bottle of white milk. Or convince them to mix their genes with the genes of the many. Genocide via the bedroom chamber is as long-lasting as genocide via war. Sounds like paranoia to me. That's the news that affects you. Back to you, David.
Thanks, Ruth. Yes, that is paranoia. North Korea continues to prepare for what it says is an impending American invasion. The government is holding mass Death to America rallies. Troops are being moved closer to the border with the demilitarized zone between North and South Korea. North Korean generals are vowing in the press that America will be exterminated. China hates us too. There is nothing like a common enemy to bring people together. The clause in the Palestinian Charter that called for the destruction of Israel has now been removed. The Israeli Prime Minister has accepted the change. Hardliners on both sides are vowing resistance. Jerusalem is still a burdensome stone and is getting heavier. And finally, anthropologists in South Africa have found a fossilized skeleton of what they claim is a human ancestor. The media initially trumpeted this as the missing link. Now they admit that it would be, at best, one of many missing links. The reality is that the fossil record does not support evolution. Older remains than these have been found in Kenya, further disproving the evolutionary hypothesis. That's been the Around the World report for tonight, and now back to our regular program.
Hi, welcome back. Tonight we have our Ask the Elder segment, and we're talking with the elder priest of the New Covenant Congregation of Israel, Yachov ben Israel. And also, I want to let you know the elder is located at NCCI 3901A Covington Highway. That's Decatur, Georgia 30032. Telephone number is 442865869. Also, NCCI has a website located at www.thencci.com. We're talking to the elder about salvation being of the Jews and a few other things, and we welcome your phone calls at this time at 770-559-2999. That's 770-559-2999. You know, Elder, before we went off, I was thinking about something that you mentioned earlier, how that Satan went to make war with the remnant of the woman's seed, and how that we were put in these different captivities. But one thing that was the common denominator in all of these different captivities, even the system that oppresses us today, is Satan. I mean, is Satan is this mighty adversary?
Yeah, he's the prince of this earth. That's what the Messiah called him, the prince of this earth. When Satan was thrown out of heaven, he had to have a place to dwell in. So this earth was given him to dwell. If you notice, he was in the Garden of Eden. See, he went to Adam, but Adam, you know, he just went to him. Right. He went to Eve. Right. And he deceived Eve, and that brought sin, brought death in the earth, you see. And Satan hasn't died. He's been right here in this earth. He's caused all of the kingdoms that came upon Jerusalem. Who you thought brought them? Satan. When the Messiah was, when he was sold out, right? Who was it that entered Yehuda Iscariot? It was Satan. You see, so Satan has always been here. Like Paul said, the devil walks around like a roaring lion trying to devour all that he can. And he told us, say, look, he said, I say that the things which the Europeans sacrifice, they sacrifice to devils. And I would not have that you would have fellowship with devils. So Yahweh kept us separated.
Right.
And then we decided we wanted to assimilate.
Right.
So we went through the civil rights movement, and now we assimilate right, and now we are further from our Creator than we've ever been.
Now, you know, one other thing, too, that's really pressing, I'm sure it's on the minds and lips of everyone, and even David mentioned in his Around the World report, and that is about this Y2K and the impact that this Y2K, this millennium bug, if you will, is going to have not only on America, but on the world at large. But I'm sure for those who at the bottom of the totem pole, if you will, are going to be impacted even more so.
Right, and there's quite a few households, brother, among our people that haven't got computers to be affected by Y2K.
Right.
You know, but they made this Y2K thing a thing that's on everybody's lips.
Right.
They tell them, well, the computers on the cars are going to stop working. No.
Right.
My computer the computer in my vehicle is not hooked up to a clock, you know, so it's not going to stop working. But see, these are the scare tactics they put on people. They want to get around to bringing in this cashless system. Now, the systems that they got now, they don't mind them breaking down.
Right.
Now, let me show you what happened. Over in Europe, they had 2 sites that they store and transact all of their information in. One is in Luxembourg and one is in Brussels, right? Now, about 3 months ago, the United States government brought online 4 brand new computer sites. Y2K ain't going to affect that at all, you see, but this is a scare tactic, and if you notice what it's doing, it's selling more software, it's getting people all upset about this and all upset about that. But this is what we have to understand, that if they did institute a program and gave you a number, if you don't worship that beast, then they'll do like they did on the net. Phase you out of the system. You see, and this is what they're going to get around to doing with our people anyways, is phasing us out of the system. This is what, but see, this is the fruit that it's going to take for us to go back and keep saying, how you doing there, my brother? Can I give you a hand doing this?
Right.
You know, it's the
bartering
fruit,
type.
right. It's the fruit to bring us back together as a unit. Everybody's going to be breathing on us. We know the nations hate us. Everybody's going to be breathing on us, and all of that is the fruit to take away our sin. It's to make us depend on each other and make us depend on our Creator.
Well, let's go to the phones. Welcome to Signs of the Times. Question or comment for the elder, and state your name, please.
Yeah, my name's Dave. And my question is to the elder, how does the Jehovah's Witness call themselves Jehovah's Witness when they wasn't there with God? And why doesn't they do not believe in the resurrection? I mean, not a resurrection, but as far as the, the coming back of God, as far as in the tribulation period.
For your call.
Question. Thank you.
Well, the reason why they believe in the things that was taught to them and call themselves Jehovah's Witnesses is because they followed a European by the name of Russell. And he was separating from another church. So they took the doctrine of Russell and then they wrote their own book and came out with their own book. But see, at the time that these things were being formulated, we weren't allowed in their churches. But after they got it all formulated and so forth, as a matter of fact, at one time, the Mormons and Jehovah's Witnesses said if you were black, you couldn't attain to the priesthood, you see. But nowadays, if you notice, seeing this thing is all about money, it doesn't make any difference who you are. You can come to God. But see, we read in class that there's nations on this earth that their whole seed is going to be destroyed. But people tell me and say, God love everybody.
Right.
Yahweh said, you only have I known of all the families of the earth. He said, I've loved you with an everlasting love. You know, he said, I'm married to you.
Right.
And I'm going to take you one of a city, two of a kind, town, and I'm going to bring you back to the land of Israel, and the nations who don't serve you, he said, they're going to be destroyed. He said, as you blossom and grow, I'm going to take other nations' land and give you those lands.
Right.
It's even in the holy cities. The cities have 12 gates, right? If people from other nations enter into those gates, they're going to have to enter into the gates of one of the tribes of Israel. They can't just go walking up into the temple.
Right.
Simply because the Messiah was born King of the Jews. What people need to do is go in St. Luke, and go John, I think it is. Go in St. John and read about the birth of the Messiah. What Mary had to say when she had conceived this child and Elizabeth had conceived Zachariah. He said, he has helped his servant Israel. He's raised up a Savior unto Israel. Paul even said that Christ came to save those, to redeem those that was under the first testament. And people say, well, the Jews didn't believe it, so he got rid of them. All the apostles were Jews.
Right.
You see, so that come from lack of knowledge. That come from listening to that word of mouth, because Paul told our people at one time in one church. He said, seeing that you put this thing from you, lo, we're going to turn to the Gentiles, right? That's where he was sent anyways. You see, Yahweh had opened this thing up for the nations to receive salvation. I mean, he created all flesh.
Right.
But it was certain way that they had to receive salvation. So what they decided to do, seeing that they had us in captivity, and they saw that Christianity was grabbing on, man, it was making converts all over Europe and Asia, so it was putting people, the empire together and so forth. Right. So what they did was this: they opted to use the Crusades to go all over the earth, conquering other people's lands for gains, right? Then they came over here in another crusade and murdered off the Indians. Then the Christians got them slaves, and now we Christians. Now, what kind of sense that make?
Let's go back to the phones. Caller, go ahead, state your names. And if we don't get a chance to get to your phone calls, please leave your name, your number, and the elder can give you a call. Caller, go ahead, state your name, please.
My name is Reggie Tate.
Yes, sir.
And I would like to know, what do you think or predict will happen in the future? You know, like the year 2000. The 21st century, and what can we do about all the atheists that don't believe in God?
Okay, thank you, brother. Elder.
Well, if you don't believe in God, you got a problem. That's for sure. People call themselves atheists, and they're their own God. So deliver yourself. That's what the scripture said, ain't it? It said deliver yourself.
Right.
And see, with this thing that's getting ready to come upon us, you have to go back and see what Christ said. Christ said, it's going to come a time when whosoever killed you would think that he did God a favor, right? And then it was told that we was going to be hated of all nations. For Christ said, we're going to be hated of all nations for his name's sake, right? And we are hated. I'm in the bottom of the pile, aren't we? We are hated of all nations. Right. So what I see with this system of thing, if you don't believe in the God of Israel, then it's impossible for you to be saved. No doubt about it.
Let's go back to the phones. Caller, go ahead. State your name, please.
Yes, my name is Anthony.
Yes,
and,
sir.
Elder, I've heard you talk before about this whole concept of tithing, and for me, I'm still a bit confused about that. When I'm told that it's important for me, in order to receive the benefits of my blessings, I have to live in covenant with God, and a part of that is tithing that 10%, and how I give it, who I give it to, my church, whatever it's supposed to be used for. Please explain to me and help me get some clarification on how important it is for me to tithe, what that means. And the second thing is that in Job chapter 5, it talks about God will rescue you in 6 troubles, and the 7th trouble that no evil will touch you. Can you explain to me what that means also, please?
Thank you.
Well, the 6 troubles that we've had so far has been the 6 captivities that we've been in. The 7th trouble is going to be the trouble that's going to come upon us at the Great Tribulation period, and that's the one that we're going to be delivered out of according to the Scripture. Now, as far as tithes is concerned, what you have to do, you mentioned a key word, being in covenant with God. Being in covenant with God. Now, if you're in covenant with God, what you do is this. You go and read the covenant and see does the covenant say anything about tithing. See, tithing was given to the Levitical priesthood when our fathers came out of Egypt, you see, and it was for the support of the priest. That's what it for. We might have had 50,000 priests at any time. They weren't given any land, so Yahweh, instead of taking our firstborn, he took the priest to himself. And he told us, seeing the priest ministered to him in his temple, he told him, said, look, you bring up that 10th, and you give that 10th, and your heave offerings and so forth, you give the first fruits of all your dough and everything, the first fruits of your oil, you give that to the priest. That was for the priest and his family. But see, for many, many years, the church didn't tithe. Then about 15, 17 years ago, Oral Roberts and all them folks started tithing, and before you know it, it had spread down into our neighborhood. Now, they say we're not under the law. We're under grace, right? Well, if we're not under the law, show me 10%. The only place that you can find that 10th is in the law book, in the Old Testament. You see, and in the New Testament, if you notice, Paul was going around asking those churches for donations, wasn't he? See, he wasn't telling them about tithing, but people say, well, see, he say, let every man give as God has prospered him, right?
Right.
I said, well, show me 10%. And no one can show me 10%. Tithing was not given. We were collecting tithes from the world because Yahweh told us that you shall be a kingdom of princes.
Right, above all nations.
Right. So we were collecting tithes from the world because we were giving them the doctrine of salvation. That paid for it.
Salvation is of the Jews.
You see, so what happened was, once they put us in captivity, the church took over, and then here recently, in this century, in the last half of this century, was when the churches started to tithe. But before that, brother, there was no tithes. They lived off free will offering. So what this shows is this. They'll say, well, we don't have to keep the law. So they changed the Sabbath day from Saturday to Sunday, right? So we don't have to keep that. We, God didn't know what he's talking about. We know it was the first thing he blessed and sanctified, but we changed it because Christ was resurrected on the first day of the week.
Right.
God didn't so change it.
Right.
Then they turn around in the last half of this century here and start collecting tithes because they realize one thing, brother. That waiting on folks to put money in the church was the poorest thing. I mean, unless you had a big, huge church somewhere and dedicated followers. The church was the poorest thing in the neighborhood. But nowadays, brother, the church is the #1 banker in the world.
Right.
And to show you what happened, what the church think about that, when the Olympics came, brother.
Right.
Now, we know the Olympics is tied up into a bunch of paganism. It's in honor of a whole lot of pagan gods, right?
Right.
But the churches said, the ones that was around the stadium, said we're going to close up our businesses on Sunday when the Olympics is in town. I mean, they gave place to rituals that was performed to pagan gods, right? They gave place to that. And what kind of sense would that make if they say they're serving the true and living God? Yahweh said, don't worship idols.
Right.
And that whole Olympics thing was about what? Was tied up about a bunch of idols.
It's interesting you say the churches are the biggest bankers or banks in the community. There are a conglomerate of churches in DeKalb County that have formed a credit union.
Sure.
Let's go back to the first caller. Go ahead, state your name, please.
My name is Toshiba.
Okay.
And my question is, how is it that the people in Israel truly believe that they are the chosen people, and do they really know the truth about who we are as black people? And my next question was, what were the ways of the marriages for Hebrews? I mean, we have ceremonies where we get married and, we have to go to the church and we exchange rings and all that. What were our people's true ways when it came down to marriage?
Good question. Ed?
Well, what you have to do, my dear, a lot of questions that people ask you can find out if you read the story. All you have to do is read the story, and it'll tell you how marriages was consummated and so forth and so on. The way that we did it was this. Families made agreements, right? And when the time came, they took the daughter to the groom's house, right? And left her there, right? The marriage was consummated once he accepted her in the house. But the things that we got today with the ring, the marriage license, the blood test, and the rice and all that junk, that came from our captors.
Right.
You see, that came from our captors. Now, we had a wedding ceremony, a reception ceremony. After the wedding, they took the bride over to the groom's house, and he accepted the bride and so forth. Then they would have what they call a wedding feast. And they'd sit down and everybody eating everything, but the marriage was already consummated. Now, the way that we do it is this. People make vows to each other. I mean, marriage is a personal thing. Right. People make vows to each other before they create her, right? Now, if they violate those any of those vows, then they're going to have to answer to the Creator about those things, unless it's in a position to where if the wife utter a vow and her husband disallow it that same day, then none of her vows will stand.
Right.
But if he wait for a while and say, well, and hold his peace, then whatever she said, then if she don't perform, he disallow it, then the husband puts him in the position to carry his wife's sin. That way, the twain can still be one. But as far as the things that we got today that we do in as far as marriage is concerned, that ain't about nothing but spending a whole lot of money.
Even giving up the giving of the law was a marriage.
Of course, when God married our people, that you're absolutely right. The 10 Commandments, the 613 laws, statutes, and judgments are the wedding vows that Yahweh gave our people when he married our people. This is why he told us to keep it forever throughout your generation and all your dwelling. This is why he said, I'm married to you, and I'm going to take you one of a city and two of a town, and I'm going to bring you back to Israel. But the nations say, no, that's not going to happen. We're going up in the Never Never Land, and we're going to walk down the streets of gold and all that stuff. And I've never read in my Bible yet where there was no gold streets in heaven.
You know, she asked a second question about the Israelis. Do you think at all that they know that we indeed are the true Israelites?
All the governmental system on the earth know, brother. They know that they took our place. All you got to do is read the Bible. If you read the Bible will tell you that the Jews were black.
But you read earlier, Jeremiah said that the nations knew that that Israel forsook their God.
Right. You see, so the nations knew it. And in the 300s AD, this is when they started recognizing the Israelis as the Jews. When Jerusalem fell, wasn't nobody in land, right? So they moved up into Europe, right? The people called them the people of Judea. And then you have to look back into the New Testament to where the people were mingling their sacrifices. Herod was mingling his sacrifices with our people at that time. I mean, the people came and told the Messiah about it, you see. But what we consider the Jews to be is a race of people. They're not. The Jews is a religious body. A convert to Judaism is a Jew. You see, so once they got up into Europe, they called them the people of Judea, and then later on in the 3rd century, they began to call them Jews. And with the help of Great Britain in the United States, in 1948, they took over part of the city of Israel, and everybody said, well, the Jews have returned home. And I'm looking at my book, and my book telling me the Jews back. You see, so what it is this. Satan, the adversary, the devil, has put us in a very precarious position. Like Daniel said, but they're going to destroy the mighty and the holy people. Well, look at us. We're not a nation. We can't name a king that came up among us. We don't know where we come from, right? We practice the religion of the nations, right? And right now, all the nations on the earth have gotten high above us, and truly, we have become the tail, just like the prophets say, right? So we can very well see that the adversary, the devil, has been using the nations to keep, as his strap to deal with us. Let me show you what I mean. This is in 1 Corinthians 10th chapter. He said, the cup of blessings which we bless, 10 and 16, 1 Corinthians 10 and 16. The cup of blessings which we bless, it is not communion of the body of the Messiah, the anointed one rather. The bread which we break, is it not the communion of the body of Christ? For we being many are one bread and one body. For we are all partakers of that one bread. Now check this out. He says, but I say that the things which the Europeans sacrifice, they sacrifice to devils and not to God. And I would not that you should have fellowship with devils. You cannot drink of the cup of Yahweh and the cup of the devil. You cannot be partakers of the Lord's table and of the devil's table, right? Okay. Now, everybody on the earth has got the knowledge. Know that the Sabbath day started from Friday sunset to Saturday sunset, right? So the Catholic Church changed it, right? From 12 o'clock midnight. From 12 o'clock midnight Saturday to 12 o'clock midnight Sunday, right? Okay, now they changed the Lord's Sabbath. Then they turn around and gave us holidays to keep instead of holy days, right? And then they tell us, well, see, Paul said you're not under the law, you're under grace. In other words, we got a free reign to live every man according to his own wicked imagination about things, right? And then we think we're going to be saved, like it said. We following the Europeans, right? I say that the things which the Gentiles sacrifice, they sacrifice to devils and not to God. January 1st, Janus, right? December 25th, we got this little mythological fat dude wearing Coca-Cola's company colors, red and white, right? Flying all over the earth, right? Dropping, coming down in chimneys, reindeer on top of the house, you know, waiting, right? Coming down the chimney, bringing gifts, putting them under the tree, right? And we know damn well we bought those presents. But what we do, we say, well, see, this God, he knows when you're sleeping. He knows when you're awake. He knows when you're bad and when you're good. Only God does that. You see? So this God here is going to be your God for one day in the year. Right? But who did we get that from? We got that from the Europeans. In January 1st, they're going to go out and celebrate Janus, the two-faced god of door. They're going to have the countdown. Everybody's going to get drunk, black-eyed peas and collard greens, the first man in your house. You have a man in your house the first visit. You're going to have a man in your house all year, which appeases the women that don't have men in the house, right? And then they're going to make all them resolutions, telling all them damn lies they're not going to keep. But see, when you go back and read the rituals and things that surround those days, that's what they're doing. Platinum maypole, all of that junk we got from the nations, right? And it's nothing.
You got about 1 minute left.
It's not written in the book anywhere.
And then come Peter Rabbit.
Right. Yeah, we got to have Peter Rabbit, Tom Turkey, and all that stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, we got about 1 minute left, and just want to let people know when we have classes. Classes are held every Sabbath day, beginning at 1 o'clock.
Saturday. You have to tell them on Saturday because they don't know which day the Sabbath is.
Okay, Saturday, beginning at 1 o'clock p.m. Tuesday nights beginning at 8. Thursday nights beginning at 8, and that's for sisters only. And also the first day of the week, Sunday, beginning at 10:30 a.m. So, and also the telephone number is 44286-5869. That's 44286-5869. There's a website located at www.thencci.com. I think we got about 30 seconds, maybe. Any parting words?
Well, the only thing I say is what I always say, my brother. Don't take anybody's word for your salvation because you ain't going to be able to blame them when you stand before God.
Right.
Spend some time and study your book from the beginning to the end. And if you start in the beginning, when you get in the end, you're going to find out that there's something erratically wrong. And it's all about you.
Good night.